You know, if you're just snacking on this in the afternoon, I feel like that would be socially acceptable. It doesn't seem like a dessert. Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today I'm gonna be making Bon Appetit's Swirled Sesame cake. So Claire described this as a quick bread, which is kind of a hybrid between bread and cake. Growing up, my mom was always making quick breads. We had apple bread, banana bread, zucchini bread.
Pineapple shrimp, lemon shrimp, coconut shrimp, pepper shrimp.
Pretty much anything you could put in a quick bread, my mom was doing it. So I'm really excited to try this recipe today. I do these Bon Appetit recipe tests every single Wednesday. So if you like this one, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Without any further ado, let's see how this goes. The first thing that I'm doing is preparing my loaf pan. The purpose of this is kind of twofold. One, it prevents the loaf from sticking to the pan, and two, by leaving the little parchment paper flaps over the edge, it gives you something to hold on to lift the loaf out of the pan. This is a standard size loaf pan, but one interesting thing to note is that Claire said the pan dimensions would be given by the bottom measurements of the pan, so 8.5 inches by 4.5 inches at the bottom of the pan. However, the dimensions on my bread pan, which is a Wilton pan, were actually for the top of the bread pan. So don't be alarmed if your pan is labeled something slightly different. Just check the bottom dimensions of the pan with a ruler and you should be good to go. After spraying with vegetable oil, I'm just kind of haphazardly sprinkling in the white sesame seeds, black sesame seeds, and granulated sugar. The recipe noted that you could use a spice grinder, blender, or food processor to grind the sesame seeds that we're going to use to create the swirl. However, in my blender, this did not work well. I think the seed quantity was really just too small, and I kind of feel like a food processor would be a similar situation. I think a spice grinder is kind of the only option. However, if you have a mortar and pestle, I think that could work really great for this application. So next I'm just portioning out my dry ingredients. So this cake does use cardamom, which is a warm spice, kind of similar to cinnamon. I originally purchased it when I made Claire's apple pie recipe around Thanksgiving time, so I'm excited to have another recipe that's using this spice. And then I'm just combining my yogurt and my tahini together. So Claire noted that this would kind of seize up and create a really thick paste. And she was not joking. Once I got whisking in there, it kind of turned almost into like a peanut butter consistency where it was really hard to get the whisk through it. But I persisted and got it all combined. With everything prepped, we can start actually making the batter. So this recipe starts by whipping together the eggs, sugar, and vanilla extract. This is very similar to the chocolate coconut macaroon cake that I made last week. I think it's called an egg foam cake, where you're aerating this egg mixture, and this contributes to the lift and rise that you're getting in the actual finished cake along with the leavening agents. Once this is really fluffy and incorporated, we're just going to gradually stream in the vegetable oil, which has the toasted sesame oil added to it. You want to pour the oil in really, really slowly. You don't want to pour it too quickly or it's going to break the emulsion and you're going to have kind of like a split curdled mess on your hands. Once all the oil is incorporated, we can start adding in the dry ingredients and the tahini. So you're alternating between dry and wet ingredients, and this actually is super important to do. So the reason for alternating between wet and dry ingredients is that this mixture that we've been working with, the eggs, sugar, and oil, is actually completely saturated and can't really take on any more liquid content. So we literally couldn't mix in the yogurt and tahini without causing the mixture to split and separate. You could say, okay, well, why don't you just dump in all the dry ingredients, right? If you add all the dry ingredients, they will get absorbed into the mixture, but then you still have all that yogurt and tahini that you need to mix in. And so what that's going to do is cause you to really mix for a long time, and overworking that flour mixture is going to develop the gluten and give you a really tough cake. By alternating back and forth, it kind of is the best of both worlds. It allows that additional moisture content to be added into the cake while also avoiding overworking the flour and creating a tougher cake. It is important, don't skip that step. It's kind of mission critical to getting a good result here. Once the batter is fully mixed, you want to just kind of eyeball half of it and put that in with the ground up black sesame seeds that we prepared earlier. And then you're just going to mix this together. So this is giving you the contrasting color for your marbling. So you can can see here that my sesame seeds are not fully pulverized, so you're seeing little speckles within my mixture, but that's okay. It still gave me a nice amount of contrast between the two batters. And then you're kind of just doing these lazy blobs, alternating. Wherever you put the lighter batter, you're going to put the darker batter. Wherever you put the dark batter, you're putting the lighter batter. There's really no rule to doing this, and so just keep alternating the different colors until you're done. Once you've got all the batter into the loaf pan, just shuffle it around a little bit to help it settle down and be level. And then I'm using just a chopstick. You want to use something that has a little bit of width to it so that it has some drag as you move it through the pan and it kind of creates those swirls. A toothpick or something like that is going to be a little bit too thin. You don't want to drag your skewer along the bottom of the pan because that's going to disturb all the sesame seeds that we sprinkled down at the beginning. You don't want to over mix the colors because then they're just going to blend together and you're not going to have that swirl pattern. So less is more with this step. Once the batter's all swirled, we're just topping off with a little bit more of the black and white sesame seeds and granulated sugar. I baked my cake in the middle rack of my oven and it took exactly 55 minutes for a cake tester to come out clean. After baking, you need to let this cool in the loaf pan for about 10 minutes and then you can lift it out of the pan and let it finish cooling on a wire rack. So the cake is completely cooled and I cut myself a slice. Overall, I'm super happy with the swirl action that I've got going on here. You can see that there are some kind of seeds that aren't really fully chopped up. So the blender didn't do as great of a job as the spice grinder that Claire used, but I really like this outside. It's really nice and golden brown. It's fully cooked all the way around. So let's give this a taste. Nice bit of crunch on the outside. I think that sugar that we sprinkled over it has kind of caramelized up a bit, and it's got a little bit of a really nice crispiness to it. So the flavor here is really interesting. It's a little bit sweet, but it doesn't taste like a dessert. It's not kind of like that really like indulgent feeling. This feels very kind of savory and comforting, and you know, if you're just snacking on this in the afternoon, I feel like that would be socially acceptable. It doesn't seem like a dessert. So that's kind of cool. So overall, I'm really happy with how this cake turned out. The flavor is better than what I was expecting. Going in, I was a bit nervous about the savory flavor profile. However, the recipe really nicely toes that line between sweet and savory. Is it a dessert? Is it a snack? It's kind of up to you to decide. So I'm a huge fan of this. I'm definitely gonna make it again. Overall, the recipe was really easy to follow. Not a ton of kind of unique ingredients, just normal stuff you can easily get at the grocery store. So when you make the sesame cake, please tag me in your post on Instagram. I would love to see how it worked out for you. I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.